Good day everyone. I am going to report about the Echinostoma ilocanum and Artyfechinostomum malayanum. So, taxonomy. It is belong to the kingdom of Animalia, phylum Platyhelminths, class Trematoda, order Echinostomida, family Echinostomatidae, genus Echinostoma, and Artyfechinotomum. So, common name of Echinostoma ilocanum is Garrisoni fluke. Brief history about these parasites. Echinostoma ilocanum was first described as a parasite of man in the Philippines by Garrison in 1908. So, one of the earliest report of Echinostoma ilocanum in humans was from the Philippines. So, the Philip Garrison found eggs in the feces of prisoners at Bilibid prison in Manila. And of course, the 5 prisoners from northern Luzon were found to be passing eggs, and after with male fern, and 21 worms were recovered in the feces of those prisoners, and was later reported in man in the Indonesia. So Lindo Lake Valley of Sulawesi, Indonesia, infection were attributed to ingesting or eating fresh water clams in 1953. So worms causing echinostomiasis have been studied for more than 200 years. So it is believed that the first descriptions and illustrations of echinostomes appeared in Schwammerdam's Biblia Naturae in the 17th century. So, dugay na kayo siya. And lastly, so katokong ingon, eggs of Echinostome were found in the feces of 5 prisoners in Manila, Philippines in 1907. So, actually, 1907 siya na kita tong mga eggs, but it was reported 1908, a year ago. So, the morphology of Echinostoma ilocanum. So, in adult, reddish gray in color, and measure 2.5 to 6.6 millimeter in length and 1 to 1.35 millimeter in width. So, 49 to 51 color spines. So, oral sucker lies in the central of the circumoral disc, and the ventral sucker is situated at the anterior fifth of the body. And of course, there are two testes are deeply bilobed, arranged in tandem in the third quarter of the body of the katong adult Echinostoma ilocanum. And the ovary is located just in front of the anterior testes. So, muna siya ang picture na siya. So, di ba reddish in gray, tapos the echinostoma, so there are two testes, sunod kay ang ovary. Ang ovary, naa siya uterus. Ang uterus, which, naa siya eggs, dito na, kuan ang eggs, nagpuyo. So, na siya vitellaria, Mealy's gland. Ang ventral sucker, kay ano siya ang sa anterior fifth of the body, while ang oral sucker is centrally located. So, while imong egg, straw colored, operculated, and ovoid, measuring 83 to 116 micrometer by 58 to 69 micrometer. So, muna siya ang egg. So, the life cycle. So, the life cycle of the genetic trematodes are regularly complex. Lisod siya. And species from the Echinostoma are no exemption. So, lisod siya pero Echinostomid flukes undergo a host life cycle. So first, the unembryonated eggs pass in feces of the infected definitive host. Then, the it develop in water. So, may na siyang embryonated eggs in water. Kaya na-develop naman siya through pag adun niya sa water. And number 3, the enclosed meracidia usually take about 3 weeks to mature before hatching. So, magulat pa kag 3 weeks before ma-mature ang meracidia ug pag after ma-mature niya mag-hatch na siya. So after hatching mag-ato na siya, after which they swim freely, mag-penetrate sila sa first intermediate host. Kini mag-penetrate siya sa first intermediate host, which is ang imuhang snail. So the intramolluscan stages include sporosis and 1 or 2 generation of Rediae and Cercariae, which are released from the snail. So kini silang tulo intramolluscan stages gi-release ni sila sa first intermediate host. And after that, the Cercariae may insist as metacercariae. So free swimming Cercariae invade second intermediate host. So ato na po siya sa first intermediate host. So katong the Cercariae may insist as metacercariae, mahimo na siyang metacercariae. From Cercariae, mahimo siyang metacercariae within the same first, or magpabilin lang siya dito sa first intermediate host, or mangita siya second intermediate host. So, to penetrate, dito na po siya magpenetrate. And next, the definitive host becomes infected after eating the metacercariae of the second intermediate host. So again, the definitive host becomes infected. The definitive host becomes infected after eating the metacercariae in the infected second intermediate host. So, and after that, ma-infect na po siya, ma-adto siya sa exist in duodenum. So, the metacercariae exist in the duodenum and the adults reside in the small intestine. So, ang uban kay mo siya sa bile ducts and large intestine. So, mo lang to siya ang life cycle sa Echinostoma malayanum. So, an embryonated, the meracidia, and then mahimo siyang Cercariae. After the Cercariae, mahimo siyang metacercariae. Mag-insist siya into metacercariae. Dito na siya magnita og second intermediate host para mag-penetrate na po siya dito, and katong imuhang definitive host ma-infect siya kung makakaon siya after eating metacercariae. So after eating metacercariae, so infected na po siya gikan sa infected second intermediate host. So ang metacercariae mag-exist sa duodenum, which is ang metacercariae nimo mag-exist sa duodenum. So ang adult dito na siya mag-reside sa imong small intestine or bile ducts or sa large intestine. So that's all ang life cycle. The first snail intermediate host is the Gyraulus convexusculus, ini siya, ini, and the Hepiotis umbilicalis, kini siya. A and B mo siyang first intermediate host. While the second snail intermediate host is the Pila luzonica, or ginatawag na ito nga kohol siya. And the Vivipara angularis or susong pangpang. Ano siya ginakaon sa mga tao. So main habitat of definitive host is in the small intestine, duodenum, and pyloric area of the stomach. So The Artyfechinostomum malayanum, we have ova, adult, and the snail katong intermediate host. So this parasite kay na siya synonym or formerly known as Artyfechinostomum sophraticeps and Cathemycia cabrerae. Ano siya ang iyang synonym. So the morphology of malayanum. The adult measures 5 to 12 millimeter in length and 2 to 3 millimeter in width. So rounded posterior end has 43 to 45 collar spines. Two testes are large, two gyapon siya, each with 6 to 9 lobes arranged in tandem. So ovary is small, rounded or oval, located anterior to the testes and pre-equatorial. While ang egg kay larger than the Echinostoma ilocanum, and golden brown in color, operculated, measures 120 to 130 micrometer by 80 to 90 micrometer. So man siya ang imong adult na nadiri sa imo ang iyahang eggs, siya testes, and so on. So the life cycle of kanang Artyfechinostomum malayanum. So the life cycle of this parasite is unknown. However, its typical host is the utilized kanang same lang sila sa tawag ni sa ilocanum, but ang imong definitive host kay na siya human, rats o pigs. So the unknown a typical host is utilized to snails, gani the first intermediate host and the second intermediate host that contains metacercariae. Ano siya, mga infected with metacercariae ni siya nga snails, ang first o ang imong second intermediate host. So if dili human, if dili pig na ay rat, the cycle can be maintained in the wild rat population. So kung walay human, walay pig, pwede siya sa rat. So ang life cycle sa parasite is maintained, dili siya mag-stop. Kaya ang imo naman kay definitive host, which including humans, pigs, rats, cats, and even cats and dogs, kay pwede og mice, hamsters. Mo siya reported as kanang definitive host. So mo lang to imuhang life cycle. Next, first snail intermediate host of Artyfechinostomum malayanum has not yet been identified, while the second snail intermediate host, the Limnicomindiana, siya semi-white, and or the Ampullarius canaliculatus golden apple snail. Ano siya ang usually nato makita, kini siya with eggs, kana siyang pink eggs na sa snail. Ano siya. So pathogenesis of these parasites. So in heavy infections, inflammation develops at the site of attachment of the adult worm to the intestinal wall. So ulceration and consequently diarrhea, which is sometimes bloody, as well as abdominal pain may also develop. So absorption of metabolites from the worms may result in general intoxication. And the catarrhal inflammation often occurs due to the penetration of the sharp-spined collar into the intestinal mucosa, which creates ulcerative lesions. So peripheral eosinophilia is usually present. Pag present gana ang imong peripheral eosinophilia, possible na naakay catarrhal inflammation gikan sa parasite na Echinostoma ilocanum. So a small number of fatal cases of Artyfechinostomum Echinostoma malayanum, in which heavy worm burdens caused anemia, malnutrition, or intestinal perforation have been reported. So, ang imong Artyfechinostomosis, human infections with this species have been reported from Isabela, Tarlac provinces in Luzon, according to Monzon and Kitikon in 1989. So, pigs from the provinces of Pangasinan and Bulacan in Luzon were found naturally infected with this species, so infected with metacercariae, which when fed to rats and hamster yielded adult Artyfechinostomum malayanum. So, di ba ang pig kay infected with metacercariae nya gipaka fed to rats and hamster yielded adult Artyfechinostomum malayanum. So, the snail Bulastra cumingiana is the second intermediate host and the source of human infection in the Philippines. So, snail kasagaran. Clinical symptoms. So, ang katong tao nga infected with these parasites nasa symptoms na gastrointestinal, abdominal pain, diarrhea. Kung mag-diarrhea ka, syempre manghina ka, weakness. And after that weakness, mag-weight loss. And occasionally mucosal bleeding. So, pwede ka magkaroon ng occasionally mucosal bleeding. And the treatment. The treatment is praziquantel, should be administered to 25 mg to kilogram body weight 3 times in 1 day. So, 3 times a day ka mag-take ani nga medicine. So, other drugs that have effectively been used include mebendazole, albendazole, niclosamide, which is kanang common na sa to kay balik-balik na lang. Pero ang kining tetrachloroethylene kay urang bago lang siya. So, tetrachloroethylene should be given in a dose of 0.1 ml per kilogram body weight. It should be taken with an empty stomach after a light meal the preceding night. So, empty stomach. Epidemiology. Southeast and East Asian it is endemic in northern Luzon, Leyte, Samar, and the provinces of Mindanao. Also in Surigao del Norte. According sa kong journal, dito sila nakakita og positive katong 70 adult patients nagpositive sa kanang Echinostoma sa Surigao del Norte and sa Davao de Oro or formerly Compostela Valley. And also in epidemiology, laganap jud siya diri sa Philippines. Kay Philippines still holds the record with the fastest growing human population in Southeast Asia with an annual growth rate of 2.7% annually. So, preventive measures involvement mainly avoiding ingestion of raw or improperly cooked second intermediate snail host of these parasites. So, preventive. So, kato itong mga eating habit, kailangan na to i-change. Kung nagakaunta og mga raw or improperly, wala na tarong naluto nga mga kutay nagakauntag exotic food which is ang snail. Kung dili to siya mga tarong og luto, pwede ka ma-infect sa katong naip-parasite dito nga sa snail. So, kailangan jud kung maghilig kag exotic food, tarungon ni magluto. And also, human infection with many of these diseases, katong mga diseases can be prevented. Pwede man, prevention is better than cure. So, nagyo prevention ang tanan by changing the food habit katong ingon. But this requires lisod siya kay kung nakasanayan na nimo kaon ang ang snail or muna inyuhang kanang food source, lisod siya, uh, lisod siya kay mag-require jud siya aggressive health education campaigns. Kaya ang prevention na lang ana is, the best prevention is to properly cook the uh, snail or katong mga exotic food na imong ginakaon, gina-intake. So, journals. First journal is about an update of on human econostomiasis by Toledo and Esteban. So this this journal in published on 2016 talks about that despite the public health impact, it has been neglected. Ang econostomiasis kay neglected for years. So have been considered as a minor disease to low income areas. So katong mga remote areas, ito katong mga lisod adto ang mga lugar. So this reviews the main feature of human econostomiasis. So ano na lang ni siya kanan pag-help nimo makilala ang katong imong katong mga ganahan nimong kaunon. So the diagnosis and treatment, control, mga katong prevention, mga life cycle, and the morphology and all na diri asa update of human econostomiasis. Although nakalimtan na siya, pero naagihapon siya kay nagpabilin man to 1% sa population dito sa Luzon kay infected ani nga sakit. Next is the foodborne parasitic zoonosis in the Philippines by Salcedo Eduardo. So foodborne awide kini siya kay katong infection na a number of foodborne parasitic zoonosis have been recorded in the Philippines, including the Echinostoma, Artyfechinostomum, Heterophidiasis, Fasciolosis, Carnifalisis, Paragonimayasis, Clonorchiasis, Taeniasis, Echinococcosis, and Hyatidosis, and also the Difolibotriosis. So, daghan jud ang foodborne parasitic zoonosis nga na diri sa Philippines. So some are now rarely observed while others continue to be a public health problem. So kato kung mga na-mention kay ang uban dito kay kanang wala na siya, totally eliminated na to siya diri sa Philippines, while ang uban nagpabilin gihapon ang iyahang nagpabilin gihapon siya diri ang public health problem. So the next is the Echinostoma, a common but forgotten foodborne disease. So this journal shows a wide variety of aquatic animals, snails, bivalves, crustaceans, fish, and amphibians serve as the second intermediate host. So capable of completing the life cycle. Kini mo siya nga mga kaning wide variety sa kaning aquatic animals, snails, crustaceans, fish, and etc. Kay capable ni siya ma-complete gihapon niya iyang life cycle, patuloy siya ma-maintain niya iyang life cycle without involvement of the human host. Bisan walay tao padayon siya og kanang laganap. So, the World Health Organization control programs implemented for other foodborne and sustained endemic areas are not fully ang katong mga sustained endemic areas katong mga dati nga na infected dito nga tao kay ang uban kay not fully successful for econostomiasis because kay nag-display lang siya nag-display of broad specificity. So, mo lang to siyang food. And lastly is the Echinostoma malayanum infection, the Philippines, by Vicente Y. Belisario, Marilyn Benedeth M. Anastasio, Giovanni G. Heronilia, and Winifrida U. De Leon. So, in 2002, the Department of Health kauban sa Provincial Health Team of Surigao del Norte reported 102 cases of fasciolid-like infections, di ba? Ang ay ang diagnosis ani kay same lang sila sa fasciola fasciolopsis buski o katong fasciola. Same lang sila pero larger. So, abi sa katong mga katong researcher nga fasciolid-like infection to siya. Pero the study group after nila katong kuan og nagtest og 70 adult patients in Barangay Liberdad in Santa Monica, Siargao Island in Surigao del Norte. The researchers confirmed that it was Echinostoma ilocanum. Kaya ang ilang gigamit na ang process na ilahang gi-apply ato kay ang katukats technique. Ito katukats technique ang ilang gigamit. So then anong nakuha man to sa mga tao dito sa Siargao Island or in Barangay Libertad. Clinical history was taken. Ingon ang patient reported that hilig sila gaon o ganang mga raw na mga pag-aon which fish or snail, katong mga ginataan na snail o katong kinilaw. Basically kinilaw ang ilang kaon kay mo man ang dali kuha nila nga pagkaon kay dapit sila sa dagat. So mo to siya nga wala nila gitarong luto, which is ang kinilaw dili man siya lutuon, which is deep in salt and vinegar mixture lang siya. So after nila ma-confirm na Echinostoma ilocanum to siya, it was approved by the DOH, Department of Health Center for Health Development of Caraga Region. So mo to siya nga 102 cases nga ang Echinostomiasis dito sa Santa Monica, Siargao Island sa Surigao del Norte. And that's all. Lang to report. Thank you.